Welcome to Quantum Conversations with Thea Willette. Here we discuss energy and awareness and just how it relates and benefits our day-to-day lives. So join us today with Quantum-Touch Practitioner and Level 1 Instructor April Walker.
And be in touch with Quantum-Touch much earlier than I was. I mean, there's reasons we have our journey and the timing is right, etc. But wow, I just kind of dream of having a quantum healer in every family, like that children have something that they can do with their own energy body. And
a casual conversation where we can talk all things quantum touch, how you use it in your day-to-day, how you use it with clients, how you use it in the greater community, and share quantum touch with other people, and they understand what it is and how it's going to help them and why it's going to help them and just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty important stuff. I often think, I wish I'd known about quantum touch so much earlier in my life, because it makes such a difference in an everyday quality of life and understanding how things are perhaps a little different than we grew up thinking they were.
April is highly intuitive. She has a passion for teaching and has worked as a wellness instructor for 30 years. She has a background in hospital wellness programs, as well as working with physicians who use integrative and alternative techniques. She's developed healing programs for many health and wellness issues based on 20 years of research and her clinical work. April is a college instructor. She teaches child development, health psychology, adolescent psychology, adaptive physical education, and human services. So in addition to Quantum Touch Level 1, she teaches all levels of Reiki. She's certified in the body code, emotion code, yoga, wellness coaching, and personal training.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. How did it get started for you? Did you start with energy or you started more in education?
No, I started more in education. No, I had significant health issues and was likely to pass from them. And my son had health issues. And so we found energy work just on the journey of something has to help. We were told a lot of things that were not true, tuned out a lot. But the reality was we still didn't feel good. We didn't have answers. I mean, literally, when I found energy therapy, it was difficult for me to stand at a sink and do dishes, like a 20-minute job. I was in bed more than I was not. And I had 2 children. So this was a struggle. And I had come from a family where energy work was not very acceptable. Somehow we were opening some dark door, a lot of fear. And also my family history, bless their hearts, everybody was sick. It's just the way it was. We're all sick. It's just the way it is. It was just so accepted. Nobody was trying to search their way out of it. What are you looking for? I'm looking for something else. That's what I knew. And so energy session had been suggested, and I could stand at the sink and do dishes. I mean, that's a funny example perhaps, but that's the one that hit me. Like, there's more to our health and wellness than some of the traditional things that hadn't yet worked for me. So we didn't understand that. We were experiencing celiac disease, and they had misdiagnosed it at that time as chronic fatigue, and there was nothing they could do. So I stopped asking and stopped going to the doctor, and it nearly killed me.
Wow.
So energy work coming in and making a difference, I wanted to know everything, And I had ended up having what I call a closeted energy practice, because I was so concerned. I knew what my family thought, woo woo. Oh, that was just not going to be accepted at all. But there was something in me driving me. I was feeling better. My son was feeling better. So very motivating to do something about it. And, had the medical profession scratching their head, like, we don't know how that improved. They didn't have the answers. And of course, I always wanted the answers to everything. So I was introduced to Quantum Touch. I had my energy practice and hadn't heard of Quantum Touch. And a woman came in and she insisted that her son was really pushing for me to have a book of his. And the book was this older version of
Oh.
Touch, The Power to Heal, and he'd had his training with Richard, who had signed the inside of his book. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. Oh, okay, thank you. And I put it down for a while. And at that time, this was a while ago, but at that time, taking a trip away from my children and feeling well enough to travel for a length of time and, the funds to do that, everything was far away. I didn't have a practitioner near me. And then pretty delightful lady moved into our area and I got to actually take a class. And so there's a difference, for me, reading the book and really diving into the book and the concepts. I was still working with how can that work, doubting myself. And then when I took the class, there it was, publicly, we're sitting here literally looking at bones shifting. And I was so excited. It was like part of my soul was like, yes, if a person has guides, this is what we're trying to tell you. And it's like, okay. And then also that group dynamic, that community, I think that Quantum-Touch does just, the organization does a beautiful job of truly being happy for each other, supporting each other. What do you need? Here's some ideas. That's not everywhere, in every profession, etc. But that's what I found with the community. So that aspect was also very attractive. And so after taking the course, I just, the power of my own mind, I had no idea my mind was this strong. Yeah. The power of my own mind, revisiting what wasn't possible from my dynamics of how I was, raised and what I grew up with, that I would talk myself out of it. And so then I had to take it again. And then I took it again. And because each time, and quite frankly, I like going to energy classes. Some people do other things. I spent the whole day in quantum energy. Yes, thank you very much. It's like this amazing retreat. And I also have healing. There's so much healing that goes on in the classes. And so that was very motivating. I noticed how I felt before and I noticed how I felt after. And I'm a person that loves to experiment. So the orange juice experiment where, no, that orange juice smelled different. That orange juice tasted different. Doing the experiments from one to another where there's energy sent to one and the other one's still on the counter and there wasn't any energy sent to that. I could grasp it. I could keep it. And I know there's a lot of talk in the community right now about what's possible and then believing what's possible. So I started taking, because, that's how I am, before and after, I just wanted to see it. And also I wanted to share with other people how they could grasp that and hold on to that. And so on their phone, I would take before and after pictures just of their alignment. And then working with Quantum-Touch, making that shift, it's on their phone, not to say, hey, look what because not everybody has grown up with energy work and it's just natural and it flows. And of course it made the shift. It wasn't like that for me. There was all kinds of internal dialogue against, what could be and what am I, doing. And
so let's back up a little bit. When you first learned about Quantum-Touch, what was your profession at that point, or what was your work like?
I was teaching. I was teaching.
So as a professor?
Part-time.
So then you started doing energy work.
Yes. I was first introduced to Reiki. Yes. And I had no intention of having a practice. And I started with a friend in her home. And then I was seeing the friend and her sister. And then I was seeing the friend, the sister, the cousin. And it literally just sort of exploded. It just took off. And I didn't advertise. I was still trying to keep it private. I had my own journey with that.
And then how did your work change to incorporate the energy?
At the college, when I was teaching health and health psychology, there were some little doorways of conversation. Health psychology has a history and different things that we've gone through in our past. And it was very revealing to me personally as well, because it would talk about what happened to people who had stepped out and done some things that were different, or maybe were a little intuitive, or were doing some kind of work. And so it talked about some of the history that has happened that made things feel perhaps unsafe, and that, you know, even if your child was very intuitive, you might want your child not to be talking about what they know the person's not telling the truth of, or such like that. And then also some of the CAM practices were listed in the health book, Health Concepts. It literally talks about energy work now in a college textbook. So that was really nice. That was very freeing, and I could talk openly about energy work, and I could do some demonstration, and yeah. So that was a new frontier.
So how did learning quantum touch change your work?
I ended up having to make a decision. Do I continue as a part-time professor, or do I just go with the flow, no pun intended, of my practice? I remember I had rented space for 9 years because, I mean, after a very short time, you don't just keep practicing in someone's house or people coming, nobody knew originally, right? So I rented from a friend of mine who was a chiropractor, a space. A business was coming in and taking over, and they didn't have a lot of warning. And so we were all talking about what we were going to do, you know, where we're going to stay together as a group and try to find a building, etc. And someone said, well, April, are you going to keep doing this? You know, you're going to keep doing what you're doing? And I said, oh, I think I'll just keep doing it, you know, a few more weekends, because I would go down like one weekend a month, right? And work for 4 or 5 days. And the doctor turned to me and he said, April, you've been doing it a few more weekends for 9 years. I think you have more, he calls them patience, than I do. And I wasn't on that reality. I just kept wanting to do the work and help people. And I loved it so much that I just hadn't spent time in the analytical brain. Hey, that was an accomplishment. So that's, you know, how it came about. And then at some point it was, you know, grading homework as a teacher is not always on a schedule, and you have to put that time in. And the energy work just became a priority. And at this point, I'm kind of using it every day, living and breathing it, and I never regretted it.
So how do you use it in your day-to-day?
I use it for self-treatment when I'm walking or sending to my family. So in the morning, I go out for a morning walk, and I've had a couple of groups that, like classes and groups that come together, that started me on this. Years ago, I remember Richard Gordon sending energy every day, and I signed up for that. It was absolutely wonderful. And so then I transitioned some of those ideas into these groups and was sending energy every day. And then one day it dawns on me, I'm not in the group. I need to send energy to myself, to my animals, my pets, on a daily basis. And the difference for me now is significant. Like, I know when I've skipped it. It's evident to me when I haven't done that. You know, go out in the morning, get some early morning light, do some walking, and do some energy work. That has been how, you know, it works for me. Everybody can do it in different times, in different walks of life. But something else that I noticed is that, you know, I lived a lot of my life as an empath, absorbing, and I would try to close my field. If I had to go somewhere public, I would be closing that field, trying not to even literally breathe the energy, because I was so sensitive and aware of that. And quantum touch was game changer. I realized that I have the right to breathe anywhere. In a crowd of people, I have the right to breathe. I can take in energy that's positive. You know, I don't need to know everybody's everything. I don't need to absorb anything. So I like to say I'm an empath in recovery, just trying to, you know, be in my space and know how that is helpful and how it's not. And doing that quantum breathing in the middle of a shopping mall and realizing the difference that it made, and me getting in the car absolutely not drained in a crowd of people, that was fantastic. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree. I use that too on a daily basis. If I'm out and about, I just breathe and I just imagine myself in this big ball of light and this energy, and I'm just going to keep breathing to myself, and the rest, like, it can radiate out and help those around me if they so choose. But yeah, then I don't have to take on or be scared
Yes.
on, right? And when you don't have that fear anymore, it's like then you're limitless, and you almost realize that you were just holding yourself back.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's lots of folks that have experienced those kinds of things too. And I just, again, I mean, I'm so glad that folks like you are stepping up and you're putting it out there, because I really would have liked to have had these skills and be in touch with Quantum Touch much earlier than I was. You know, we all have our journey, and there's reasons we have our journey, and the timing is right, etc. But wow, you know, I mean, I just kind of dream of having a quantum healer in every family, like that children have something that they can do with their own energy body, and not just fall into what everybody tells them, or, you know, that they had something introduce them a little bit earlier and power to do something about it.
And then having the confidence that it's real, right? Because I think that's where I fell into a lot of self-doubt too. When nobody around me was talking about it or embracing it, then you do question it when you're on your own in that way. So now you have the energy work, and you have your teaching background and your research background. So now what are you doing with that?
I'm still, you know what? The more I know, the more I know I don't know. Like I just feel like I'm just excited every step of the way, learning so much every step of the way. I've seen things in my life now that I never dreamed I would see. And so I'm excited for that. The more healing that has happened in so many different ways, and quantum addresses everything: physical, emotional, spiritual, energetic. The more joy I have every day. Every day. And I think it helps us to be in touch with our authentic self, like who our spirit is, who we are. So I'm constantly learning. There's been a few times where insurance has covered appointments, and I was just blown away, blown away by that. Because in my mind, that old paradigm was that's never going to happen. And with quantum, I think more than any other art ever, you keep seeing that is not the truth, that things happen, miracles happen so often. The joke is it's like daily call, it's every day. And, being willing to continue that and stay in that and just have faith and be in love and sending love. I mean, does it get any better than that? Being in a space of love wherever you are, and no matter what's going on, being like, okay, I'm back in that state of love, and it'll work itself out. It'll be okay. So,
and on our practitioner calls, you've been sharing about your work in Mexico. Can you share about that?
So yes, there is a hospital it's called a medical institute in Mexico that is alternative. And they reached out to me a few years ago, and I thought, oh, spam, I didn't even look at it. I just was certain that it was spam. And then they sent another email, and they asked very specific things about a lot of, different work that I do that wouldn't be recognized by somebody. That's a lot of effort for spam. So I had a couple conversations with them and interviewed with several people. It's a several step interview. And was able to go over and experience working on a team in a different model than I had witnessed anywhere locally. You're working with a staff. Every single patient has a nutritionist, a psychologist, a chiropractor,
Wow.
and multiple doctors, depending on, why they're there. And people come in with some pretty tough cases. There's different various cancer programs, and there's Lyme disease programs, and now they're having some COVID programs, long haulers, et cetera, that they're setting up. There are some people that are there for what they call a detox. They're checking in, they're taking time on their health, they're seeing all of the various specialists. So I was hired as a mind-body therapist, and I was hired at the time of the shutdown. There was a lot going on at that time, and it was hard to find practitioners. And so you're supposed to go for 2 weeks, see how you like it, see how they like you, and then make a determination of, when you might come back and do the job. And there's training involved, and you witness all of the different folks' jobs. And because of the shutdown, they were just pretty like, can you stay? And so that ended up, can you stay? Can you stay? Can you stay? Now I want you to keep in mind, I had 2 weeks worth of clothing. So I was there for 3 months, the first round, because it was just a circumstance of the world state, and people weren't able to travel in and out of their country to do the mind body therapy. We had several rotating therapists that come in and do what we call a rotation. Generally, the rotations are anywhere from 1 to 3 months. It was a good experience to see this model where we have a meeting every morning called the medical meeting, and everybody comes together and each patient is put onto the board. And how can we best help? There's this medical treatment, and then there's this energy treatment. And as a mind body therapist being asked, what did you notice? What do you think, which modality that, will you be working with? What healing arts are you going to be focused on? It was interesting because you would see that they told the nutritionist one piece of the puzzle, and they didn't mention that to me. And they told me another piece of the puzzle, and they didn't even mention that to their doctor. So it's interesting to put up what everybody has to say. You get a much bigger picture of what is going on. They maybe didn't believe was a stressor, and that in fact actually was. So that experience was beautiful, to see and be a part of a team, and to see how it could work for folks and how it could help. And I watched people come in barely able to talk in a wheelchair and walk out high-fiving people.
Wow.
I had they call them patients there. We always call our clients not patients, but there the word is patients. And I had a patient come in. It was 16 years old, straight A student, beautiful job, got Lyme disease and had a stomach ache every day and could barely get out of bed and was in tears. And within the first week was already doing so much better and happy. And the mom was crying because she was happy because there were no more stomach aches. And so it was an accumulation. And there's something just really beautiful about working with a team. Working with a team. A lot of times as energy workers, we're pretty solo. We have a business, and we're pretty solo. So, I loved the idea when I worked in an energy practice, like I said, with a chiropractor. There were chiropractors, there were massage therapists, there were other energy workers and acupuncturists. And we would say, hey, that sounds like something the acupuncturist might want to look at. Are you interested in talking to them? And then we'd see if they had time. And so there was this reciprocity and synergy that went into helping somebody.
I think that speaks to the work itself, because energy work, you could do it on yourself, but it is effective when somebody else does it with you. So it would make sense that the practitioners themselves would work in a group.
I don't know about you, but I've had times where I work on something, and then I basically go to someone to have a full session, and then I'm able to get to it. I don't know that we're always supposed to do every single thing by ourselves.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's just so nice to receive.
Exactly.
Just to receive.
We're meant to be together, right? In community.
Yeah. To receive.
Really cool.
I think too, when you're receiving, it's like some of the systems let down. You're not on one side of the brain. You're just receiving, you're not thinking, you're not. Yeah.
So. I mean, then you can totally be present and experience it. Because when you're running energy to yourself, there's still that little bit of, am I doing it right? Am I doing it enough? Should I do it this way? You do have that self-doubt. But when you have somebody there with you, you're right. You can just relax and then receive.
I think too that that's a piece of it. When you listen, when somebody is with you as a practitioner, that we spend a minute and we check in. And I think there's some magic. When I was doing my thesis, I did some stuff in the medical area for children, and I was interested in knowing more about symptoms. And I had a doctor say, it's very interesting. We always ask patients when they come in, are you still having this symptom? And they will forget that they even had it. It was almost taking over their life, and they forget all about it. So it's this phenomenon. And when you go through the certification process with Quantum-Touch, they have you ask whoever you're working with, because you want to get those hours, you want to get that practice. well, what's the issue and how would you rate that? Is it like a 3, it just bothers you now and then? Is it like a 10, like it's taking over your life? How do you rate that?
Mhm.
And the majority of the time, even in the session itself, that number goes down.
Mhm.
And then the fact that you contact them 3 days later in this process and
Mhm.
you ask the questions again,
Mhm.
and the numbers went down more.
Mhm.
That's fascinating to a mind like mine.
Mhm.
My mind was just like, wow. And so sometimes some things take a little longer, sometimes things take a little less, but
Mhm.
that process to me was very valuable, that
Mhm.
getting to practice and then keeping the records. I just came back from another 2 months. I will say a couple things about that. It's challenging to be away from your family and your practice. I have a full-time practice in addition too, so I would spend, part of the time on the weekends, and then I have
Mhm.
other folks that do some stuff for me in the background.
Mhm.
Thankfully, it's challenging to do both. And my husband said, "So, if you go again, can you only go for a month?"
Mhm.
We've been married over 30 years. I'm in a position to be able to do that. If I had young children, there's no way I could do that. Another thing that I do like about it that really still draws me is the concept and the team. I mean, you can't help but get to know the team. They're
Yeah.
wonderful people, and
Yeah.
nobody's there for the money. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's a pretty beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that draws me though is research that they're doing. They're doing research. They're pretty open to trying something they've never heard about before and running some tests. And I just got to, at the end there, I just got to be able to do that because we had such a high patient load and ratio. We had a second practitioner come in, and we overlapped. And so I got to participate more using these different machines. One of the machines is called a BioWell. And there's been a lot of research done with the BioWell. It kind of shows before and after reading. So you do, 30 minutes of something, and then they do research, and then they have you do an hour. And then, so they have their own agenda of their research that they gather.
Mhm.
And one of the main researchers, the doctor there, I could tell I was always really enthusiastic, and I asked it, 1,000 questions. And she was just kind of laughing because they're gathering long-term research that machines are noticing the difference, as well as what the patients have to say about it. Some of the research that's gone through, there's a practitioner that practices a certain art, and then when they're gone, there's no one there to continue that necessarily. And so they're looking at ways of keeping some of these additional modalities in place and training their staff. They really do a great job of training, and they want to be evidence-based. And some evidence-based protocols for study are longer term, and then you have the placebo, and there's many things about the research that I got to learn that still is very much of a draw for me.
Mhm. Yeah. So you're teaching some of the quantum touch energy techniques to the staff?
No, 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 no. I haven't taught a workshop to the staff.
Oh, okay.
They are starting to take and train with different things like that. We are looking at those possibilities, which is great. I mean, if I can come in and do it, then it's already done. If they can have these different folks rotate through and just do the studies with that, and I don't mean just it's a big deal, then that's pretty good. So for example, a quantum touch session that I did with a patient, and she had these small jumps in organ efficiency. So I was like, oh, 2%, 3%. She goes, do you have any idea what that means? That's actually a huge thing.
Hmm.
Oh, so I'm not, a scientist. I didn't have, the background to understand that that was a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
Other thing that they noticed was that at first it sort of when you're working with somebody, it's sort of how she described it. This is her description personally, by the way, but it's like it shakes everything up, and then a day later all of these things come into alignment. So if I go back, that's the next piece, is getting to that next phase of the research.
Wow. So just to kind of reiterate what you said, you do the energy work on a session, or you do the energy work on a patient. And then the machine shows that everything's kind of been shaken up.
Yeah.
And then the following day, it becomes aligned.
And sometimes a day later, sometimes 3 days later. So there's more research that needs to be done, I guess is what I'm trying to articulate here. And that when we see change, no matter what it looks like, and nothing else has been different, like literally we take and the BioWell measures the energy field and does its readings. We go right into the next room, we do the session, we come right back and we take the readings again. So the follow-up would be—
Sorry, one moment. Sorry. I can see out my windows and the kids are playing, and then my daughter just fell off the deck.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So I just had to grab my husband. But, pardon?
You need to pause it?
No. It was a 1.5 feet. It wasn't a huge fall, but my husband's with her now and she's okay. But it was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, jumping out of our skin, right?
All right. Where were we?
I
You were
was
going
in
and out of rooms with this BioWell machine.
Yes. Yeah. They have something called the quiet room where that machine is housed. They have some other, I'd like to also do, see, I'm drawn to it, obviously, but I'd like to also do thermography, before and after thermography after a session. So,
and what kind of image will that show?
It'll show heat distribution in the body. There's a couple different ways of registering thermal heat. And something that I was learning was that sometimes they want to see less blue, less cold in the body, more circulation. So it's sort of a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And patients, if they were a cancer patient, they would be there 3 weeks. We could see them up to twice a week. Lyme disease could be 2 to 3 weeks. The detox programs were like 4 days. So we had different numbers of appointments, generally speaking, with people with different issues that they wanted to work on healing or balancing. And then also if somebody needed more or less of a particular department, then they would arrange that according to our meetings.
And now what kind of results were you seeing with cancer patients?
Well, the patients that I was working with were pretty happy, and it depends on what stage they were in when coming. Of course, there's many variables, having shrinking tumors and within 3 weeks, that's pretty phenomenal. And then, having that aspect, it is literally a team effort. Like they're changing their diet, they're eating all organic food while they're there, they're not using harsh chemicals and things like that. It's literally a detox program where we have an environment that shows any change being reflective of the work that's happening.
Wow. So, and I know you had mentioned something about auras.
Well, yes, chakras, auras. It's hard to show. Let me see if I can. So I'll show you. Biofield works by taking pictures of each finger of your energy field, and each meridian runs to the different areas of the body. So it gives you literally a visual of the front body, the side body, the back body, and you can take a look at it. And when you're looking at it, sometimes you'll see a disturbance. So, you have this image of color around the body, the physical body that's reflected, that will have some jagged edges, or there'll be a spot on the back of the body, for example, that there's this whole section that's sticking out more than the base. I'm talking with my hands, those that are listening to this without a visual, I'm talking with my hands, because it's exciting to see a change that happens with energy work in that field. There's less holes, and it seems like the parts that were really sticking out stick out less. So we're just talking about the energy body, and they're the healer. They were capable of doing this. And I think that there's some real potential for hope there when somebody's facing something that's frightening to them. I thought it was really exciting. I mean, quantum touch, definitely, people always say they feel better. At least, my experience with that is I feel better. There are also some analysis here, the before and after, measurement numbers of what the stress was before the person came in, what their energy was, what their balance was, what the different various organs balances balance were, and then the after. And it's fascinating to look at something on a chart with numbers. We feel what we feel, obviously, and we process what we process in sessions. Obviously it really helps. In stress reduction, oh my goodness. I mean, if you're super stressed, you go outside and do some fire breathing, come back. It's amazing the change. And that's just one tool in the many that are available to us.
Yeah, I like to think of it when I'm working with myself as like a self-regulation tool, right? That moment that I'm feeling stressed or triggered,
I
right?
absolutely love those words.
Like you become aware of it and you take a moment and just run your breath, set your intention, and just that change, like that relief that I feel.
Absolutely. Can you imagine knowing that as a child, that was even available and what that could look like? And, it's like energy world can bring peace,
Yeah.
There's so much beautiful, beautiful things available to us.
I think it taught me just how important my intentions are, right? And the thoughts and the words in your mind, and just how powerful that is, because now I just need to combine that with my breath and feel this energy move through my body, and it can create change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, and energy flows where our attention goes, right? And so if we're constantly in this other state with negativity or emotions, and we don't learn to observe that and then do something, take action with that, send some energy to that, we can get really stuck in that for a while.
So how does your background in psychology help with your work? Or how has your, I guess,
my background is
it's really interesting that you have both of those, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm not a psychologist.
Okay.
My degree was in human development. There's a lot of psychology background in that. And my background's pretty diverse. I mean, I was all over with different things. But, I learned about how people developed and what kinds of patterns people can get into based on what's happened to them at different ages and stages. Some people go through things and they have no idea, oh yeah, that can happen. Like, menopause, that can happen during menopause. Well, maybe they weren't raised around a lot of seniors and they didn't know what the transitions were in between, So learning those things has actually been pretty valuable. Learning about child development, how children develop, and what their needs are at different ages and stages. So for example, trying to teach a child to share before the age of 2, the development isn't there to support that. So getting frustrated over that or shaming a child is not useful. So that application can help. We can take quantum touch and send it back to our inner children or our children that we have if there's something going on, to those times in their life that were difficult, and you can change the energy of that. I mean, that's amazing. That's like
powerful
stuff. So,
how does that work with trauma? Are you along the lines of trauma the way you work?
We do a lot of work with trauma and around trauma. Going back and spending time acknowledging that something happened, that you don't have to shove everything down, that you can take a look at it. It takes a certain amount in the beginning of being brave to do that, and just being gentle and kind with ourselves in doing the work and going back in our timeline and sending to ourselves. Or maybe part of the trauma was a younger sibling, you were protecting a sibling or something like that, and reaching in and spending really relatively short period of time working on it, for that to not have as many triggers in our everyday life. Because in a way, trauma impacts us by trapping things, and our limbic brain doesn't seem to be able to tell time. It's as if it were happening today, even though you don't have a memory of where this is coming from all the time, because it's been tucked away where you needed to be safe for whatever reason, or you couldn't express it at the time. You didn't have a place to cope in that moment. And so when we do this work and we go back and we send to these times and to the people who were involved and to our younger selves or to our children, paying attention, like when a child falls, mommy, kiss it better. Man, that is magical stuff right there. Mwah. Is that better? No, kiss it better. Mwah. No, kiss it better. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Now kiss my bum. Oh, okay, okay. It's like we've observed, we've listened, and we took action to send back to our time or work on healing in some way. And basically love, right? Being and showing love. Yeah. It's not overnight sometimes, but sometimes it is.
Right.
Always worthy. You'll never regret the work, though.
Yeah.
You'll never regret the work.
So do you work with clients who experience PTSD?
I have worked with many patients in that's exactly what we're working on at the hospital I was at, that, we work a lot with that. Yeah.
Wow.
Sure. And, we tune in and we expand with love, and no matter what, that always sees the work through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I love about Quantum Touch is really you can work with anything. You just run the energy, hold that loving space, and just observe.
The person doesn't have to talk. They can just receive.
Yeah.
Like because receiving, just receiving, addressing something in their life.
Because your body knows what to do with that energy and how you need to heal, because everybody is their own healer. So having an abundance of energy and having that support and love around you is always going to be a good thing.
It is. That's why, I might teach it, but I also receive it. It just, receiving is so nice. It really is so nice. Supporting each other in that way, going through sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you taught a lot of Quantum Touch to kids?
I have not taught a lot of Quantum Touch to children. No, not yet. I'd like to see it more. I'd like to see more of that direction, certainly.
Have you taught your kids?
I have taught them Reiki. I haven't taught them Quantum Touch.
I haven't taught my kids, but they see what I do and they mimic what I do. So I'm like, they probably already know how to do it.
They're probably already picking it up. Yes.
I'm like, I probably don't need to tell them, because if someone's hurt, my daughter always runs up and wants to touch them, wants to be there.
Yeah. Teaching the breathing and sweeping would be wonderful. Wouldn't you have wanted to know this earlier?
Absolutely. Because now I can look back and I'm like, oh, it's like I knew that, or that I felt that, or I can look back and now experiences make more sense. Yes. Or I can look back and I'm like, that's why I was drawn to that person, or that's why I stayed a little bit longer in that situation, because it's like I was picking up something.
Quantum Touch kids. I mean, sounds powerful, doesn't it? And just as parents, honestly, having that tool as parents for stress reduction and for being able to do something for our children and help them have less pain and help them regulate. I mean, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I love it. I'm still learning how to use it with my kids, I feel, because it's like every time there's a situation comes up, but then it's like you can just take that moment and breathe into it and choose, like, what are my intentions in this moment, right? And it's so powerful.
Yeah. I could have used it much earlier in my parenting. Let's just say that. Yeah. You got to be careful, because when we're talking about energy, we start coming up with these ideas, and then it's like, are you going to run with it?
If it's meant to be, it'll flow.
Calling it energy brainstorming. Quantum Touch brainstorming. That's some powerful stuff right there.
I'm also planting the seed of a Quantum Touch conference, because I want to meet you all in person. So.
Oh, that would be so great. I think that they have had retreats in the past. Wouldn't it be lovely? Yeah. Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. So we'll just plant that seed. Cool. Well, anything else you want to add? This was lovely.
Just try it. If somebody hasn't tried it, absolutely try it.
Yeah.
There's many, many practitioners you can look up on the website and see if there's someone in your area if you want to go in person. But don't let that limit you, because I had let that limit me. Now with the internet, you can find access to somebody across the world, see who resonates with you and try it, pick it up. I mean, Zoom, WhatsApp, phone. There's so many ways of doing this work now.
Cool. So I will link your website.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Well, good luck with everything. And I'll probably see you at the next practitioner's call.